Judge Alcott's gavel strikes the wooden block with finality. Motion granted. The court will allow Mr. Wright additional time to review the medical records. My stomach drops. Again. The 5th delay in 8 months since Mom died. I grip the edge of the table until my knuckles turn white, watching my father lean toward his attorney. Leonard Wright, distinguished corporate tax attorney and master manipulator, whispers something to Mark Delaney that makes both men smirk. My pulse hammers in my ears. Sweat beads along my hairline despite the courtroom's aggressive air conditioning. The familiar tightness constricts my chest like a vice, making each breath shorter than the last. Your Honor, my father says, rising with practiced concern, we request additional time to review Mrs. Foster's medical records. There are inconsistencies regarding her treatment decisions that may impact the distribution of assets. Assets. That's what Mom's life has been reduced to. $85,000 in savings. A modest 2-bedroom townhouse in Tacoma, where she rebuilt her life after the divorce. The antique oak chest passed down through 4 generations of her family, all that remains of Elena Wright, no, Elena Foster. She reclaimed her maiden name after the divorce, a small victory in a war she never wanted to fight. Now, I'm fighting the same opponent, watching him manipulate the system, just like before. Mr. Wright, this is the 5th such request, says Clara Ruiz, my attorney and former law school friend. Miss Wright has provided complete medical records twice already. The judge merely nods, already moving on to the next item on his docket. The outcome was decided before we walked in. How is this happening? He already took everything in the divorce settlement 14 years ago. Why this too? Why can't he let Mom have the small dignity of her final wishes? I close my eyes and I'm 15 again, standing in our kitchen, as Mom tells me through tears that Dad won't be coming home. His affair with Vanessa Clark from his office had been going on for months. A younger woman, a fresh start, a cleaner slate than a wife of 17 years and a teenage daughter. The memory shifts. Mom in her librarian uniform, shelving books part-time at the Tacoma Public Library, making ends meet while Leonard thrived, made partner, bought a lake house. She never complained, never spoke ill of him in my presence. He's still your father, she'd say, though her eyes told a different story. Clara squeezes my hand under the table. Don't let him see he's getting to you, she whispers, her voice barely audible. That's what he wants. I open my eyes and study Judge Alcott's face. The slight tilt of his head when my father speaks. The dismissive glance when Clara objects. It goes beyond professional courtesy. Something else is happening here. Something beyond normal legal wrangling. I can't take it anymore. Before Clara can stop me, I rise to my feet. Your Honor, we've already provided complete medical records. Twice. My voice is steadier than I feel. My mother's oncologist confirmed her diagnosis and treatment plan. There were no inconsistencies in her care. The courtroom falls silent. My father's expression hardens, his mouth a tight line of displeasure at my interruption. My daughter is understandably emotional about her mother's passing, Leonard says, his tone dripping with condescension. It's been difficult for all of us. All of us? He hadn't visited Mom once during her 8 months of chemotherapy, radiation, and finally hospice care. Not once. Judge Alcott removes his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. I understand your frustration, Miss Wright, but these matters require thorough examination. Your father has raised legitimate concerns that the court must address. Legitimate concerns. Each ruling chips away at what little Mom left behind. If he succeeds, I lose not just the inheritance, but her final act of independence. The home she made, the savings she scraped together, the family heirloom she wanted me to have. Document every irregular ruling, Clara whispers as I sink back into my seat. We're building an appeal. I nod, but we both know the truth. Appeals cost money I don't have. As a public defender in Seattle, my salary barely covers my student loans and rent. Leonard knows this. He's counting on it. Court is adjourned until November 12th, Judge Alcott announces. Parties are instructed to submit any additional documentation no later than November 5th. Another month of this. Another month of watching my father systematically dismantle my mother's final wishes, while a judge who clearly favors him enables the whole charade. After the hearing, Clara walks with me to my car in the courthouse parking garage. Our footsteps echo against concrete as we weave between vehicles. This isn't normal procedure, Brittany, she says, checking her phone. Alcott's rulings are consistently outside standard probate protocol. I've been making calls to some colleagues who practice before him regularly. And? I unlock my 10-year-old Honda, tossing my briefcase onto the passenger seat. Clara leans against the car door. And he doesn't usually behave this way. Something about your case is different. My phone vibrates in my pocket. Unknown number with a Virginia area code. I almost decline it out of habit but answer at the last moment. Is this Brittany Wright? A woman's voice, unfamiliar but authoritative. Yes, who's calling? My name is Renee Barrett. I knew your mother from years ago. I found out about the case through some old contacts. I glance at Clara, mouthing, "Who is it?" She shrugs. I worked with Elena in the Air Force, the woman continues, before she met your father. Mom rarely talked about her military service, just that she'd done office work for 4 years before college, where she met Dad. Nothing that suggested important connections. Your mother kept things from that time, Renee says, her voice lowering. Things that matter now. Things that might help you understand what's happening with your inheritance. My breath catches. What things? Not over the phone. Can we meet tomorrow? Somewhere private? I hesitate, looking at Clara, who raises an eyebrow questioningly. I'll text you an address, Renee says before I can respond. Noon tomorrow. Come alone. She disconnects. Clara watches my face. What was that about? I stare at my phone, uncertain whether to trust this mysterious caller or continue fighting a battle that seems increasingly rigged against me. Maybe nothing. I say finally, maybe everything. I think about Mom's final days, how she'd made me promise to fight for what was rightfully hers, how she'd squeezed my hand with surprising strength and said, "Don't let him take this too, Brittany. Promise me." My mother deserved better than this, I tell Clara, a new resolve hardening inside me. I won't let them erase her. The next day, the sunlight filters through the cafe windows, casting long shadows across the worn wooden table between us. I arrived 15 minutes early, scanning every patron as they entered, not knowing what to expect from a woman who claimed to know secrets about my mother. Renee Barrett walks in precisely at noon. Mid-50s, silver-streaked dark hair pulled into a practical bun, piercing gray eyes that miss nothing. She doesn't look around searching for me. She walks directly to my table, extending her hand. Brittany Wright. Not a question. Her handshake is firm, efficient. You knew my mother. Also not a question. She settles into the chair across from me, orders black coffee when the server approaches, then waits until we're alone again. Her hands rest flat on the table. No fidgeting, no unnecessary movement. Your mother was USAF Signals Intelligence in the late 90s, she says, voice low but clear. Assigned to Operation Blue Harbor, not the librarian story your father spread after the divorce. My coffee cup freezes halfway to my lips. That can't be right. Mom worked office jobs before college. That was her cover. Elena was brilliant with patterns, encryption, one of our best. Renee's eyes soften momentarily. She never told you because of the confidentiality agreements. And later, because of what happened. What happened? The question feels pulled from somewhere deep inside me. Your father and Richard Alcott both served as young legal advisors on the same project. JAG officers reviewing surveillance parameters. Her jaw tightens. They expanded surveillance beyond legal targets, used information for influence, leverage, not officially, of course. My stomach twists. Are you saying? I'm saying your father used his legal connections to stack the divorce against Elena. Judge Alcott was deliberately assigned to your mother's case through behind-the-scenes manipulation. She leans forward. And yours now. The cafe noise fades to a distant hum as pieces click into place. The divorce settlement that left Mom with almost nothing, despite Dad's infidelity. The current probate case where every ruling favors my father despite clear legal precedent supporting me. There were others affected. Renee continues. A civilian activist whose death was written off as an accident. Elena knew, but couldn't prove it. My hands begin to tremble. I set my cup down before I spill it. This is a lot. I know. She reaches into her bag, slides a small notebook across the table. Don't open this here. But when you do, Winter Lantern was the internal verification phrase. Ask your mother's chest. There might be something there that confirms what I'm telling you. The world shifts beneath me. Mom's quiet resilience during the divorce and afterward, it wasn't a weakness. It was protection. She never fought Dad's lies about her past, never contested the unfair settlement. because she knew what he was capable of. What he and his friends had done. Was my mother being blackmailed to stay silent all these years? The question slips out before I can stop it. Renee's expression answers before her words do. Not with money, with safety, with your safety, specifically. Memory fragments resurface Mom's occasional cryptic warnings about powerful men and systems designed to protect themselves. Comments I'd dismissed as bitter divorce talk now carry entirely new. Wait, I need to think like an investigator, not just a daughter or a public defender. I need evidence, not just hearsay from Mom's old colleague. No offense. None taken. Smart approach. Renee nods approvingly. My mind shifts gears, reassessing everything through this new lens. This isn't just an inheritance battle. It's about keeping secrets buried. That's why Dad wants Mom's belongings so desperately, not their monetary value, but what they might reveal. The oak chest, I whisper. Mom specifically mentioned the chest in her will. Made me promise to keep it safe. Renee doesn't confirm or deny, but her eyes sharpen with interest. Back at Clara's office an hour later, I pace while she types furiously, digging through legal databases. Leonard filed a specific motion about the contents of the chest yesterday. Clara says, turning her laptop toward me. He's claiming sentimental value, but the language is peculiar. He's fixated on getting that chest specifically. It's not about money. The realization crystallizes. It's fear. Clara nods slowly. His legal reputation and partnership would be destroyed if what you're suggesting is true. Using confidential government intelligence for personal gain? Manipulating court assignments? That's career-ending. And Alcott's judicial appointment would be jeopardized by Operation Blue Harbor revelations. I add, seeing the full picture now. They're willing to abuse the entire legal system to protect themselves. Clara closes her laptop, expression grave. These men have everything to lose, Brittany. That makes them dangerous. We don't even know what exactly the chest contains that terrifies them so much. The weight of this knowledge settles over me. My simple inheritance case has transformed into something far more complex and potentially dangerous. But for the first time since Mom's death, I feel a strange clarity of purpose. I'm clearing my calendar. Clara announces, surprising me, this isn't just probate anymore. This is about justice, not just for your mother, but potentially for others. Renee's business card sits on the desk between us. She offered to help interpret any documents we find. Military intelligence perspective. And you mentioned Caleb Monroe? Clara asks. Retired major. Renee says he'd be willing to corroborate if we find evidence. He was administrative support on Blue Harbor and saw the paperwork flow. Clara begins writing names on her legal pad, drawing connections. So, we have legal expertise, intelligence background, military witness potential. Her voice trails off as she continues mapping our resources. Looking at this emerging network, another realization hits me. Mom built this safety net before she died, I whisper. Renee contacted me too quickly after the case started. Mom must have left instructions, contingencies. My throat tightens. She knew they'd come after her things when she was gone. Clara reaches across the desk, squeezes my hand. Then let's make sure her preparations weren't in vain. I nod, my mother's final request echoing in my mind. Don't let him take this too, Brittany. Promise me. I promise. I whisper, too softly for Clara to hear. That night, I traced my fingers along the ornate rose carvings on Mom's oak chest, remembering her birthday card from 3 years ago. The faded message inside reads, "Always look beneath the roses, where true beauty hides." At the time, I thought it was just another of her poetic sayings. My fingernail catches on something. A tiny gap where the wood doesn't quite meet. I press the rose carving and hear a soft click. No way, I whisper to the empty room. A hidden compartment slides open at the bottom of the chest. My heart pounds as I pull out a manila envelope, yellowed with age. Inside, black and white photos spill onto my lap. 2 young men in military uniforms stand beside surveillance equipment. I recognize my father immediately. His posture is unmistakable, even 30 years younger. Beside him stands Richard Alcott, now Judge Alcott, their arms draped casually over each other's shoulders. Behind the photos lies a leather-bound journal, my mother's neat handwriting filling each page. I flip through entries spanning years. The 12th of June, 1996. Ellen A. monitored Senator Gardner's daughter again today, using her to pressure him on the defense bill. This crosses every line. August 4. Jamie Winters threatened to go public. They called it an unfortunate accident when his car went off the road last night. I know what I saw in the logs. December 18. Leonard received his promotion today, 3 weeks after the Gardner surveillance success. No coincidence. My fingers tremble as I connect the dates. Each of Dad's sudden career advancements corresponds with surveillance operations detailed in Mom's journal. The pattern is undeniable, each promotion following within weeks of ethically questionable operations. She documented everything: names, dates, locations. Meticulous notes from someone who understood the value of hard evidence. Her careful handwriting fills page after page with observations that could bring down powerful men. You made sure I'd have what I need. I tell her photo on the nightstand. For the first time since her death, I feel her presence not as a loss but as a guiding force. I dial Clara. I found something. Actual evidence of what Renee told us. How solid? Clara asks, attorney mode engaged. Photos, journal entries, dates that match exactly what Renee described. I run my hand over Mom's journal. Clara, they monitored a senator's daughter to manipulate his vote. And there's an activist named Jamie Winters who died in a suspicious accident after threatening exposure. Silence on the line. Then, what are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time I had a conversation with my father. The next morning, the law offices of Wright, Patterson, and Delaney occupy the 32nd floor of a downtown high-rise. Floor-to-ceiling windows display Seattle's skyline like an expensive painting Dad has purchased for his collection. His secretary tries to stop me. Miss Wright, you need an appointment. I walk past her desk. He'll see me. My father looks up from his computer, annoyance crossing his face as I enter his office. Brittany, I'm preparing for a meeting. This won't take long. I close the door but leave it slightly ajar, an intentional choice. Witnesses nearby, but privacy for what comes next. I placed one photo on his desk. Just one. The rest remain secure in Clara's office. Dad glances down. His face pales. His hand trembles slightly against the polished mahogany. I found Mom's journal and photos from Operation Blue Harbor, I say, watching his reaction. His eyes widen slightly, confirmation that the operation name means something. Where did you get this? His voice has lost its usual commanding tone. Mom kept records, photos, journals. Detailed accounts of what you and Judge Alcott did. I lean forward. You're not fighting for $85,000, Dad. You're trying to hide this. He stands, towering over me as he did when I was a child. You have no idea what you're playing with. These matters were classified. National security. Was Jamie Winters' accident national security too? His jaw tightens. I've hit a nerve. Drop the case by Friday, I say, picking up the photo. Or I'll request Judge Alcott's recusal with these as exhibits. Public record. You're making a mistake. His voice drops to a dangerous whisper. No, you made a mistake. I move toward the door. Friday, Dad. Walking out, I feel his stare burning into my back. The secretary watches me pass, curiosity plain on her face. Inside the elevator, I exhale. My hands shake as the adrenaline courses through me. For the first time in this fight, I've gained the upper hand. Later that evening, Clara plays back the recording from the phone in my pocket. You stood your ground perfectly, she says, smiling. Your voice didn't waver once. We sit in her apartment, takeout containers spread across her coffee table. Renee studies Mom's journal, nodding occasionally. Your mother documented everything, Renee confirms. These dates match exactly what I remember. The Gardner surveillance, Jamie's accident. She points to an entry. This note about the security clearance adjustments that happened exactly as she described. My phone buzzes with a text from Caleb Monroe, the retired Major Renee connected me with yesterday. Just reviewed the evidence. Matches what I witnessed during my time there. I'll testify if needed. We have another ally, I tell them, showing the message. And possibly one more, Clara adds. Joyce from the clerk's office mentioned she's noticed irregularities in how your case has been handled. She's willing to sign an affidavit. I sink back into the couch, overwhelmed by this shift in momentum. For months, I've felt powerless against Dad's influence. Now I have evidence, allies, and leverage. Mom made sure I'd have everything I needed to fight back. I run my fingers along the journal's worn cover. She knew this day might come. Renee refills her wine glass. So what's next? Do Do you push for complete victory now, or wait for their response? The question hangs in the air. Friday is 2 days away. Dad will either capitulate or escalate. I've shown him one photo, I say slowly. He knows I have more, but not how much. Let's see what he does first. Clara nods. Smart. Force him to make the next move. I close the journal, feeling Mom's presence in every carefully documented page. This is just the beginning. The real battle with much higher stakes is still to come. On Monday morning, the courtroom doors swing shut behind me with a hollow thud as I exit Judge Alcott's chambers. My hands tremble slightly as I clutch the stack of legal documents to my chest. They filed an emergency motion. I tell Clara, who's waiting in the hallway. My father's team is claiming Mom's chest might contain classified information related to national security. Clara's eyebrows shoot up. That's a serious escalation. Leonard stood there with this solemn expression, talking about his duty to protect sensitive information. I mimic his grave tone. If the court permits unrestricted access to potentially classified documents, we could unintentionally compromise national security protocols. We push through the courthouse doors into the bright Seattle afternoon. The contrast between the dim courtroom and sunshine momentarily blinds me, and Alcott just nodded along. I continued. Said the court must consider potential classified information carefully before proceeding. Clara steers me toward a bench beneath a maple tree, dropping crimson leaves onto the courthouse lawn. This is straight out of the delay tactics playbook. I've seen this before with whistleblower cases. She flips through the motion papers. They're trying to scare you with potential criminal charges for possession of classified documents. My stomach tightens. Criminal charges? For an inheritance my mother specifically left me? It's a pressure tactic. They know the chest contains something damaging. Clara taps the document. My research shows this same approach in 3 other whistleblower cases from former intelligence employees. Delay, intimidate, then settle privately with ironclad NDAs. So, what do we do? I ask, watching a custodian sweep fallen leaves from the courthouse steps. Clara leans closer, lowering her voice despite the empty courtyard. We prepare a parallel track. Continue the probate case, but simultaneously file with the Judicial Ethics Committee about Alcott's connections to your father's firm. That's risky, I say. What if they escalate further? They're already escalating. Clara holds my gaze. The question is whether we fight back or fold. The afternoon sun casts long shadows across the courthouse steps as I consider our dwindling options. At the public defender's office later that day, my supervisor Liam stops by my cubicle. His presence feels like a storm cloud in our already cramped workspace. Brittany, can we talk about your court appearances this week? His tone suggests this isn't a casual check-in. I minimize the research I've been doing on judicial ethics complaints. Of course. You've missed 3 preliminary hearings this month. Rachel had to cover your juvenile case yesterday. My cheeks burn. I know. I've been dealing with some personal matters. Your colleagues are carrying extra weight while you handle this inheritance situation. Liam's eyes drift to the stack of probate documents on my desk. I understand family matters are important, but your cases here need your full attention. I've been working nights to stay caught up, I say, gesturing to the dark circles under my eyes. I haven't let anything slip through the cracks. Just make sure it stays that way. His skeptical expression says he's not convinced. Public defense isn't just a job, Brittany. People's freedoms depend on us showing up. After he leaves, I drop my head into my hands. The financial pressure of fighting this case is draining my modest savings. Last night I calculated the cost of continuing at current rates. I'll be completely broke in 2 months unless I take on extra assignments or abandon the case. My phone buzzes with a text from Clara. Call me as soon as possible. I step outside to the small courtyard behind our building. Gray clouds have moved in, matching my mood. What's happened? I ask when she answers. Your father's legal team just filed additional motions. They're asking for all copies of any documents related to the chest to be surrendered to the court. I lean against the brick wall. I can't keep taking time off work for this. My supervisor already warned me today about my absences. That's not all, Clara says. I think someone's been watching my office. The same car has been parked across the street for 3 days. My exhaustion deepens. This morning I got an anonymous call telling me to drop the case before it goes too far. Just a voice I didn't recognize. Then they hung up. Did you report it? What would I say? Someone made a vague threat? I kick at a pebble on the concrete. Last night someone broke into my car. Nothing was taken, but my files were clearly searched. The police called it random vandalism. Brittany, Clara's voice turns serious. They're trying to intimidate you because they're scared. This proves we're onto something significant. I watch rain begin to speckle the pavement. Is vindicating Mom worth risking everything I've built? My job? My savings? Maybe even my safety? The question hangs between us, punctuated by the increasing rainfall. That evening, I'm organizing files in my apartment when my phone rang. It's Joyce, the court clerk I befriended during my first year as a public defender. Brittany, I shouldn't be telling you this, she whispers. But Judge Alcott had a private meeting with your father last week. No attorneys present. No record on the docket. My heart pounds. Are you certain? I saw them myself. They used Alcott's private chamber entrance, but I was dropping off transcripts next door. Joyce pauses. This isn't the first time I've noticed irregularities with Alcott. Other attorneys have mentioned patterns in his rulings that consistently favor certain firms, including your father's. Ka says one. I grab a notepad. Joyce, this could be critical to our case. Ex parte communications are serious ethics violations. There's more, she says. I overheard a conversation between Alcott's clerk and your father's assistant. Apparently, Leonard's firm handles all of Alcott's personal tax matters, has for years. The pieces click together. That's a clear conflict of interest. I have to go, Joyce says suddenly. Be careful, Brittany. This goes beyond your mother's case. I've seen similar patterns in at least 6 other cases before Alcott this year alone. After hanging up, I sit motionless, processing this revelation. This extends beyond a personal vendetta against my mother. It suggests systematic judicial abuse affecting countless others who lack the resources or knowledge to fight back. I call Clara immediately. We need to talk in person, not over the phone. An hour later, we sit in Clara's office with the blinds drawn. She's swept for listening devices, perhaps an abundance of caution, but recent events justify paranoia. Joyce confirmed Alcott had private meetings with my father. I tell her, and Leonard's firm handles Alcott's taxes. Clara nods slowly. That explains the pattern I've uncovered in Alcott's rulings. This is bigger than we thought. This isn't just about Mom anymore, I say, newfound determination replacing my earlier doubt. It's about everyone they've hurt through this corruption. We spend the next 2 hours developing our strategy. We'll continue the probate case while preparing a detailed judicial complaint with Joyce's evidence. The ethics violations give us leverage without revealing we know about the classified material yet. We need to move quickly, Clara warns. Your father's pushing for immediate acquisition of the chest. The urgency suggests whatever evidence exists might have a time component. I nod, feeling more resolved than I have in weeks. I've moved the key documents to a bank vault. Copies are with trusted friends in case something happens. Rain lashes against the windows as we finalize our plans. The path ahead remains treacherous, but for the first time, I feel we have a fighting chance. They're getting desperate. I tell Clara as I prepare to leave. That means we're winning. As I step into the stormy night, I carry not just my mother's fight, but a broader purpose that makes every sacrifice worthwhile. Mark Delaney's call comes at 7:30 Tuesday morning, interrupting my first sip of coffee. His voice carries an uncharacteristic urgency. Miss Wright, my client would like to schedule an immediate settlement conference. Today, if possible. I almost dropped my mug. After months of aggressive delays and procedural roadblocks, this sudden change feels like a trap. Why the rush? I ask, signaling Clara across my kitchen table. She looks up from her legal pad, eyebrows raised. My client is prepared to withdraw all objections to the inheritance, Delaney says smoothly. Leonard believes this has gone on long enough. Clara scribbles a note and slides it across to me. Don't agree to anything. We can meet at my office at noon, I say, buying time to prepare. Clara will accompany me. Of course, Delaney replies, too agreeable to be trustworthy. 3 hours later, we sat across from Delaney in his plush downtown office. The view of Puget Sound stretches behind him, a calculated power move. My father doesn't attend, another strategic choice. Let's get straight to the point. Delaney begins, sliding a document across the polished mahogany. Leonard is prepared to drop all claims against your mother's estate. You receive the full inheritance as originally stipulated in her will, the savings, the townhouse, everything. I scan the paperwork, waiting for the catch. Clara leans forward, professional but wary. All he asks, Delaney continues, watching my face, is that you relinquish the antique oak chest and its contents. A family heirloom from his side, as you know. The chest. Mom's final sanctuary, where she kept her most precious belongings. The mysterious journal Renee had mentioned might be inside. The chest belonged to my mother for 20 years after the divorce. He never wanted it before. Delaney adjusts his tie. My client has had time to reflect on family heritage. The chest has sentimental value. No, I say flatly. The chest stays with me. Something flickers in Delaney's eyes. Frustration, perhaps, or recalculation. He reaches for another document. Very well. Leonard is willing to compromise further. Keep the chest itself, but turn over the journal and photographs inside. That's all. My pulse quickens. They know about the journal, which means they know exactly what it contains. Additionally, Delaney says, sliding another paper forward, Leonard is prepared to offer a substantial financial settlement beyond the inheritance. $200,000. $200,000. The figure hits me like a physical blow. My public defender's salary barely covers my rent and student loans. $200,000 would change everything. This settlement would end your financial worries? Delaney pressed, sensing my hesitation. You could pay off your loans, perhaps even put a down payment on a home. Secure your career without the constant struggle. Clara remains silent beside me, giving me space to process. The offer dangles before me, freedom from debt, from constantly checking my bank balance, from taking on extra shifts to make ends meet. I should mention, Delaney adds with practiced casualness, this offer expires at the end of business today. Leonard wants this resolved immediately. Back at Clara's office, I pace while she reviews the settlement papers. It's your decision, Brittany, she says finally. You've already achieved your original goal. The house, the savings, it's all yours under this agreement. But at what cost? I stop pacing, staring out at the Seattle skyline. If I hand over that journal, what happens to the truth? What about other potential victims? Clara sets the papers down. There's no guarantee we'll win the broader fight. This settlement is a sure thing. The familiar voice of my mother echoes in my memory. I was 16, facing pressure to cheat on a history final. Integrity matters most when it costs something, she'd said. Anyone can do the right thing when it's easy. If I settle, I say slowly, I get the inheritance, but I abandon any chance at accountability. For Mom, for anyone else they've hurt. The stress and uncertainty will continue if you refuse, Clara points out. This legal battle could stretch for years. Across the hall, Clara's paralegal peers in. Take the money and run, he advises. These powerful types always win anyway. The junior associate from down the hall has a different view. Some principles are worth the fight, even when the odds are bad. I recognize the pattern. This moment mirrors my father's choice decades ago. Moral compromise for personal gain. The path of least resistance. I stare at the settlement papers, something nagging at my thoughts. Why now? After months of aggressive tactics, why offer this generous settlement? Clara taps her pen against her legal pad. That's the question, isn't it? I grab my laptop, searching through the settlement documents more carefully. There, buried in paragraph 14, a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement. Permanent silence about all matters related to my mother's past, the court proceedings, and anything contained in her personal effects. The NDA would prevent any ethics complaint against Judge Alcott. I realize aloud, we couldn't use anything we found as evidence. Clara's eyes widened. She turns to her computer, typing rapidly. There's a judicial review committee meeting next month, she says. Alcott's name is on the agenda. I have a contact on the committee apparently. There's been a preliminary investigation into his rulings. The pieces click into place. Leonard isn't worried about the chest or the inheritance. He's trying to resolve this case before an external investigation can connect the dots. My decision crystallizes. I grab my phone and dial Delaney's number. Miss Wright, he answers smoothly. Have you made your decision? I have. I'm not interested in being bought off like the others. A pause. You're making a serious mistake, Delaney says, voice hardening. Some offers don't come twice. I'll take my chances, I reply. My mother deserved justice, not just a settlement. After hanging up, I meet Clara's gaze across her desk. You realize what this means? She asks. They'll come at us harder now. I nod, a strange calm settling over me. I know. But now we know why they're so desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. Clara smiles slightly. Your mother would be proud. Maybe, I say, picking up the discarded settlement papers. But that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because it's right. A week after gathering evidence, I spread the documents across Clara's conference table, each piece of evidence a stepping stone toward justice. Mom's journal lies open beside tax records, photographs, and the freshly signed affidavit from Major Caleb Monroe. We have everything we need, Clara says, tapping the formal motion for Judge Alcott's recusal. These ethics violations are irrefutable. His relationship with your father during Blue Harbor, the pattern of biased rulings, the financial connections, it's all here. I run my fingers along the edge of Mom's journal, the pages worn from my repeated readings. And we're certain this strategy keeps the classified information as backup only? Absolutely. Clara organizes the documents into precise stacks. Judicial ethics violations are our primary angle. We don't need to expose Blue Harbor's operational details unless they force our hand. Renee Barrett nods, sliding a document across the table. I've prepared this context brief explaining Blue Harbor's structure without breaching security protocols. It establishes the connection without revealing classified operations. And I've requested an accelerated court date, Clara adds. Every day gives them more opportunity to tamper with evidence. Caleb Monroe, silver-haired with military posture intact despite retirement, reviews his affidavit one final time. I've corroborated the key elements from Elena's journal. The meetings between Leonard and Alcott during the project, their unauthorized access to surveillance data, everything that matters. Now we craft the public narrative. Clara says, pulling up a presentation on her laptop. Judicial ethics violation, plain and simple. No classified details, just a judge who failed to disclose significant conflicts of interest. I stand, practicing the composed responses we've rehearsed for hours. When Judge Sandoval asks about the nature of their relationship, I'll explain that my father and Judge Alcott worked together on a government contract, maintained financial connections, and deliberately concealed this history. Clara smiles. Perfect, direct, factual, and compelling. The office door swings open without warning. My father stands in the doorway, his appearance shocking me into silence. Leonard Wright, always impeccably dressed, looks disheveled, his tie askew, weight visibly lost from his frame, dark circles shadowing his eyes. You have no idea what you're risking, he says, ignoring everyone else in the room. This needs to stop now, Brittany. Clara steps between us. Mr. Wright, you're not welcome here. Any communication should go through proper channels. He ignores her, his gaze fixed on me. This isn't just about your mother's inheritance anymore. You're playing with fire. I study him, noting the tremor in his hands, the uncharacteristic slump of his shoulders. For the first time since this battle began, I see fear behind his anger. Your concern is noted, I say, surprised by my steady voice. But I'm not backing down. Judge Alcott has canceled 3 hearings citing health concerns. Clara informs me after my father leaves, escorted by building security. My sources at Hamilton and Burke say the partners are questioning Leonard's handling of your case. They're worried about exposure. I look out the window, spotting the unmarked sedan that's been following me between work and home for the past week. They're scared. Good, Clara says. I leaked a tip to the Seattle Times about an unusual judicial recusal motion being filed. Pressure increases scrutiny. Are they coordinating their response? Renee asks. Clara shakes her head. Not effectively. Leonard wants to settle quietly. Alcott wants to fight it publicly, claiming national security concerns. They're undermining each other. Later that evening, we received notice of an emergency hearing scheduled before Judge Sandoval on the temporary information suppression motion. Our careful presentation strategy suddenly faces its first test. We present the ethics violations without the classified details. Clara advises as we prepare. Just enough to establish the pattern. If they invoke national security, we counter with your public defender experience. You've navigated security clearance issues before. I nod, arranging the documents for maximum impact. Layered revelation. We show the surface issues first, keeping the deeper evidence in reserve. The team works through the night, anticipating every counter-argument, preparing for the confrontation ahead. When everyone finally leaves, I close my eyes, practicing the meditation techniques my counselor recommended for managing courtroom anxiety. The weight of the hearing settles over me. Rain taps against the windows as I drive to the cemetery, needing this moment alone before everything changes. Standing before Mom's grave, I trace the engraving on her headstone. Elena Foster Wright, beloved mother. No mention of her service, her sacrifice, or the secrets she carried to protect me. I understand now, Mom. I whisper, the rain mingling with my tears. Why you stayed silent for so long, why you warned me about them, but I won't live in that shadow anymore. I place fresh flowers beside her name, then return to my car. Tomorrow will change everything. Morning arrives with Clara's final advice as we approach the courthouse steps. Once we present this in open court, there's no going back. She warns. The fallout will be significant. I touch Mom's locket around my neck, containing the only photo of us together that survived my father's vindictive purge after the divorce. Mom spent years silenced by fear. I say, straightening my shoulders. I won't be. Their attorney approaches with settlement papers. I shake my head without even looking at the offer. Clara stands beside me, Renee and Caleb flanking us in silent solidarity. The documents we've so carefully organized are tucked securely in my briefcase, each page a piece of the truth I've spent months assembling. I take a deep breath, feeling strangely calm as we climb the courthouse steps. The unmarked car is parked across the street. My father's Mercedes pulls up to the curb. Judge Alcott's reputation, my father's career, their decades of manipulation all hanging in the balance of today's hearing. For the first time since this battle began, I feel no anxiety, no doubt, no hesitation. For the first time, I tell Clara as we reach the doors, I'm not afraid of them anymore. The courtroom buzzes with activity, attorneys clustered in small groups as they await their cases on Judge Sandoval's crowded calendar. I sit beside Clara, my back straight against the hard wooden bench, watching the door. My heart thumps steadily against my ribs, not racing with anxiety as it has in previous hearings, but with the calm rhythm of someone who knows exactly what's coming. Are you ready? Clara whispers, arranging our files on the table before us. I nod, my eyes fixed on the entrance as my father strides in with Mark Delaney. Leonard's usual confident swagger seems diminished today, his shoulders tense beneath his tailored suit. He glances in my direction, his expression hardening when he sees my composed demeanor. What's she up to? I hear him mutter to Delaney as they take their seats at the opposing table. The bailiff calls the court to order as Judge Mara Sandoval enters. She's a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and reading glasses perched on her nose. Her reputation for thoroughness precedes her exactly what we need today. I understand we have several motions before the court, Judge Sandoval says, shuffling through papers, including a last-minute filing from the Respondents' Council. Delaney stands. Your Honor, given the sensitive nature of the allegations in Miss Wright's recusal motion, we filed a motion to seal these proceedings on national security grounds. A ripple of interest passes through the attorneys waiting for their cases. Judge Sandoval's eyebrows rise slightly as she reviews the new documents, taking her time. I watch Leonard fidget with his gold cufflinks, a nervous habit I recognize from childhood. He leans over to whisper urgently to Delaney, who nods without looking at him. Miss Ruiz, Judge Sandoval says finally, you may proceed with your argument regarding the recusal motion. Clara rises, her voice clear and measured. Thank you, Your Honor. This recusal motion addresses clear ethical violations that have compromised the fairness of these proceedings. Delaney interrupts, standing quickly. Your Honor, these allegations involve sensitive national security matters that should not be aired in an open courtroom. Judge Sandoval regards him over her glasses. I understand your concern, Counselor, but I need more specificity. What exactly are we discussing that implicates national security without revealing classified details? Clara meets my eyes briefly before responding. Your Honor, we have documented evidence of ex parte communications between opposing counsel Mr. Wright and Judge Alcott that violate judicial ethics. These communications occurred outside proper channels and directly influenced rulings in this case. Leonard scribbles frantically on a notepad, shoving it toward Delaney with barely concealed urgency. Sweat gleams on his forehead despite the courtroom's chill. Furthermore, Clara continues, opening a folder, we have evidence that Judge Alcott has handled Mr. Wright's personal tax matters for the past 3 years while presiding over this case, a clear conflict of interest that was never disclosed. Judge Sandoval's expression shifts, concern evident in the tightening of her mouth. "These are serious allegations, Miss Ruiz." "We have documentation, Your Honor." Clara slides the folder forward. "Bank records showing payments from Leonard Wright's firm to Judge Alcott's private consulting business, correspondence regarding tax strategy, and records of meetings during the pendency of this case." The judge reviews the documents, her frown deepening with each page. Leonard stares straight ahead now, his knuckles white where he grips the edge of the table. The court will hear the full recusal motion without sealing the record. Judge Sandoval announces finally, "Mr. Delaney, your motion to seal is denied. Please inform Judge Alcott that his presence is requested." A court officer leaves to fetch him. The minutes stretch with uncomfortable silence. Other attorneys watch with undisguised curiosity. Finally, the door opens, and Judge Alcott enters, his usual commanding presence diminished. His face is ashen as he takes a seat beside the bench. Before proceeding, Judge Sandoval says, "I need to address the motion for recusal filed against Judge Alcott in the matter of Foster Estate." Judge Alcott clears his throat. "While I see no direct conflict of interest that would necessitate my recusal." I stand, my chair scraping against the floor. Winter Lantern, Blue Harbor. 4 words. 4 simple words that drop into the courtroom like stones into still water, creating ripples of silence that spread until every eye is on me. Leonard half rises from his chair, naked panic flashing across his face before he can compose himself. Judge Alcott freezes, his knuckles whitening where they grip the armrest of his chair. "Your Honor," I continue, my voice steady. "My mother documented everything before her death. She served in signals intelligence, not as an office clerk as my father always claimed." "Miss Wright," Delaney interrupts, "this is highly inappropriate." "Your Honor," I press on, addressing Judge Sandoval while ignoring Delaney. "I'm prepared to submit this evidence to the Judicial Ethics Committee if necessary. But I believe Judge Alcott understands exactly what these documents contain." A man rises from the back of the courtroom, Caleb Monroe in his crisp suit, his military bearing unmistakable even in civilian clothes. "Your Honor, I'm Major Caleb Monroe, retired. I was a commissioned officer present during Operation Blue Harbor. I can verify the authenticity of the documents Miss Wright references." The courtroom stills completely. Every attorney present understands the significance of what's happening, even without knowing the details. Court personnel exchange glances. This is no longer just another probate dispute, but something that will be discussed in legal circles for months to come. I meet my father's eyes across the room. "We don't seek to harm national security. We seek justice for my mother, whose final wishes have been obstructed through improper influence." Judge Alcott stares at his hands for a long moment before raising his head. "This court will grant the motion for recusal. I hereby recuse myself from all matters pertaining to the estate of Elena Foster, and order the case reassigned to Judge Mara Sandoval." The court clerk's mouth opens slightly in surprise, her fingers pausing over her keyboard before she continues typing. Leonard leans back in his chair, the fight visibly draining from him. "Your Honor," Delaney says, "we request an immediate recess to reassess our position in light of these developments." Judge Sandoval nods. The court will recess for 30 minutes. As people file out of the courtroom, Leonard approaches me in the aisle, stepping close enough that only I can hear him. "You have no idea what you're doing," he whispers, desperation edging his voice. I look directly into the eyes so similar to my own. I know exactly what I'm doing. Drop the case, issue a public apology for questioning Mom's competence, and this goes no further. He searches my face, perhaps looking for the little girl who once sought his approval, who believed in his infallibility. Instead, he finds only his ex-wife's determination reflected back at him. "You're making a mistake," he says, but the threat sounds hollow now. "No, Dad. The mistake was thinking Mom wouldn't protect herself. She knew you'd come after her estate. She prepared for it." The new power dynamic settles between us like an invisible current. For the first time in my life, I watched my father back down. Later that afternoon, Delaney filed a notice of voluntary dismissal. We sit before Judge Sandoval as she reviews the history of the case with evident skepticism. "I see numerous procedural irregularities in the previous hearings," she notes, flipping through the file. "Given the voluntary dismissal and my review of the original will and medical records, the court finds that Elena Foster was of sound mind when executing her will. The estate shall be distributed according to her wishes." Relief washes through me in a warm wave. 8 months of fighting, of watching my mother's dignity questioned, finally ended. Additionally, Judge Sandoval continues, Judge Alcott has formally recused himself from all matters related to the Wright and Foster families. Outside the courtroom, a reporter from the local legal newspaper approaches us. Miss Wright, can I get a comment on this unusual case resolution? There are rumors circulating about classified information and judicial misconduct. This was about honoring my mother's wishes, I say, keeping my voice neutral. Nothing more. As the reporter moves away, the court clerk, Joyce, passes by with an armful of files. She pauses beside me. I've filed an internal report about the previous hearings, she says quietly. What happened wasn't right. Concallers. Clara squeezes my arm as we walk toward the elevator. We won, completely. I nod, thinking of my father's public statement released just minutes ago. I withdraw any suggestion that my former wife was impaired when creating her will. The elevator doors close, and for the first time since my mother's death, I let myself cry not from grief, but from relief. Mom's reputation remains intact. Her modest savings, the townhouse where I grew up, and the oak chest containing her journals and photographs will remain with me, as she intended. Later, I stand in that townhouse, running my fingers over the carved lid of the chest that started this whole battle. Inside lies the evidence that brought my father down, classified operation names, written in my mother's neat handwriting, documents that connected Judge Alcott to Leonard through old military contracts, proof of their long association that should have been disclosed. We did it, Mom, I whisper to the empty room. We did it. The chest contains so much more than legal leverage. It holds my mother's true history, the woman she was before she became my mother, before she met Leonard Wright. The medals she never displayed, the commendations she never mentioned, the life she set aside. I close the lid gently. Tomorrow, I'll begin sorting through these remnants of her life. Tonight, I savor the victory that finally gives her the respect she deserved. 2 days later, the law firm's letterhead looks different when it arrives, addressed to my father instead of from him. I smooth the paper on my kitchen counter, rereading the paragraph that begins with internal review of all cases handled by Leonard Wright. My fingers trace the words, pending investigation, and professional conduct concerns. Judge Alcott's medical leave announcement made yesterday's court circular. The Judicial Review Board's interest in his case history, particularly those involving my father, wasn't mentioned, but Renee's contacts confirmed it's happening. 3 other attorneys called me this morning, each hesitantly describing patterns they'd noticed in Alcott's courtroom when Leonard appeared before him. Miss Wright? A reporter's voicemail plays on the speaker. We're doing a piece on Judge Alcott's unusual recusal. Many experienced judges don't step down mid-case without explanation. Would you care to comment? I delete the message without returning the call. Some victories deserve privacy. Clara arrives with coffee and a smile that could light up Seattle's darkest winter day. Your mother built the perfect case from beyond the grave, she says, setting a cardboard tray on my counter. The evidence was meticulous. The timeline is impeccable. She always was thorough, I say, pulling the executor's release form from my bag. Look what arrived this morning. Full access to everything. No restrictions. The chest sits in my living room now, its brass hardware gleaming in the afternoon light. No more court battles. No more delays. Everything my mother wanted me to have is finally, legally mine. That night, I slept in my mother's townhouse for the first time since winning the case. The bedroom walls still hold her favorite watercolor landscapes. Her reading chair sits by the window, where morning light will stream through. I curl under her quilt and feel wrapped in her protection, just as I had been all along without knowing it. Renee and Caleb visit the following weekend, bringing old photographs and stories from my mother's military days. Elena never talked about what happened because she was protecting you, Renee says, patting my hand. Your mother would be proud of how you handled this. Caleb nods. She fought with documentation and patience. You did exactly the same. 6 months pass in a blur of change. I continue my work as a public defender, but something fundamental has shifted. I stand taller in courtrooms now, challenge inappropriate rulings with precision rather than frustration. When Judge Martinez tries to rush through a questionable warrant in one of my cases, I cite 3 precedents and request proper review without a hint of uncertainty in my voice. The framed photo of my mother sits on my desk at work, not the formal portrait from her funeral program, but one Renee gave me. Elena in her Air Force uniform, young and confident, eyes bright with purpose. Beside it lies her leather-bound journal, its most important excerpts preserved, and others carefully redacted, before submission to the Ethics Committee. I've started mentoring first-year public defenders on maintaining ethical boundaries in challenging situations. Document everything, I tell them. Preparation is power. Preparation. Leonard lost his partnership after the firm's review. We pass each other occasionally in courthouse hallways now, him with fewer clients, me with growing confidence. Our exchanges are brief, civil. The rage that once burned through me has cooled into something calmer, the satisfaction of truth finally acknowledged. The Washington State Bar Association invited me to speak at their spring conference about judicial accountability. I titled my presentation Methodical Justice, When Process Protects Truth. Mom would have appreciated the careful wording. The townhouse in Tacoma no longer feels like a battleground. I've arranged her books on shelves, displayed her photographs, and placed her favorite blue ceramic vase where sunlight catches it each afternoon. The oak chest sits in the living room, no longer holding secrets but filled with family photos, her military commendations, and mementos I've rediscovered. Last month, a young woman came to my office with a familiar story. A judge with connections to opposing counsel, rulings that defied legal reasoning, procedural delays without merit. Instead of simply sympathizing, I pulled out a fresh legal pad. "Tell me every detail," I said. "We're going to document the pattern." I showed her how to file for judicial review, how to request specific documents through properly worded motions, how to build a case methodically, rather than react emotionally. Sometimes justice requires patience and preparation, I explained, hearing my mother's wisdom in my own words. The Elena Foster Integrity Fund, launched with $35,000 from my inheritance. Its mission, providing legal resources to those facing judicial bias. 3 cases of misconduct have already been exposed through the fund's support. Next year, we hope to expand our scope and perhaps develop a guest lecture series for law students about ethical boundaries in practice. Today, I placed fresh flowers on my mother's grave. The autumn wind rustles oak leaves overhead as I tell her about the fund's progress, about the cases we're supporting, about my plans to approach Seattle University's law program about a potential workshop series. "You taught me that sometimes the most powerful words are the ones you save until exactly the right moment," I say, adjusting the flowers against her headstone. I think about all she kept hidden to protect me, all she documented to empower me when the time was right. The wind lifts my hair as I stand to leave, carrying my final words to her. Justice isn't always about revealing everything. Sometimes it's about knowing precisely when and how to use the truth.